These aren't violent crimes he's charged with. He's not a flight risk, for instance. Are you surprised that there was a $7 million bond in a case like this?
Yeah, it actually doesn't sound befitting. One of the main goals of bond is to take away enough funds, to allocate it at enough amounts so that it's to cripple the accused from possibly fleeing, okay? And if we have reports here that he has no more than $10,000 in his bank account, then the bond amount needs to be apportioned to that. It needs to be appropriate, given that in mind. How much money could he possibly use, to flee? And really, that's the intention of it. It has no bearing on the case or how notorious the case is. So I think $7 million. That sounds a little abrupt.
Yeah, not only that, the judge actually exceeded what the state was asking for. The state asked for $6.2 million, which is the same amount that he is alleged to have stolen from some of his clients. As a matter of fact, just to highlight the fact of how serious these things are, we know about his maid who actually died at his home. He kind of stole some money from her children when he was dealing with that estate. But then there's also a statement made by Thomas Moore. He's a lieutenant with the South Carolina Highway Patrol. Here's what he had to say about this guy. Here's the problem. He treated me that nice, and he stole every dime I had from the injury that I had. So this guy was injured on duty and ended up losing all the money that was to come from that to this guy. So these are not crimes that we're going to say, okay, don't have victims. They're serious crimes. But again, without the aspect of violence involved, the fact that his money is so tied up in other things and doesn't have much money, I wonder if the fact that he comes from a prominent family with probably access to money played into the judge's decision.
And that's what I want to see from this judge. If this judge is taking it into submission, then ultimately there probably is some grounds and some very reasonable grounds as to why the court came here, right? Such as an assessment of his access to possible capital, right? Does he have colleagues and friends who may help him out? Now, ultimately, this is someone who I think understands the gratitude of being a flight risk, understands, what consequences there are, to actually fleeing. And really, there's a lot of parameters that could be taken to be able to limit this kind of conundrum. Not only that, you kind of want to also move the process along this early on. You don't want to have these kinds of consequences. And really, what the judge could do is deny bond altogether. So, this court, I think, needs to come to some kind of reasonable assessment as to exactly what that amount should be, and make a ruling as such. And I think that that's exactly what this court is doing by taking it under submission.
Well, what's interesting is that, their attorneys argue that the fact that it is $7 million and considering his financial situation, it's tantamount to providing no bond in a case like this, which they say violates his rights. Do you think it rises to that level?
Well, the court could assess factors and to determine, he's such a threat to society that essentially there would be no bond available, and they'd have to meet that burden, ultimately in being able to do that. The prosecution is not even asking for that, so it puts this court kind of in a hard position in being able to attribute exactly what is a cost that actually works out here.
Yeah, and again, we don't know what the judge has done in this case yet. She has taken it under advisement. Apparently, she wants to release a written decision. And as soon as we get that information, we'll report that to you and let you know exactly what the outcome was. All right, stand by, Matthew. It is time for another break. When we